So I've been using the Galaxy S9 Plus now for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I didn't want to just jump right in and make a video on it because mainly I wanted to use the device, get a feel for it, and really kind of give you guys my perspective on the phone. This is not a review by any means. There's a lot of great reviews, by the way, out there. They've done a really great job talking about all of the latest features, talking about specs. That's not really what I want to do here. I want to talk about my experience with the Galaxy S9 Plus, mainly because I think that you guys can get that information elsewhere. Instead, you probably, if you're interested, obviously subscribe to the channel. You want to know my perspective and my view towards the Galaxy S9 Plus. So there's a particular area that I really wanted to focus on, no pun intended, is the camera, mainly because Samsung touted this as one of the best camera. It has a really high DxO mark, and also I think their slogan was camera reimagined, I believe that's what it was. So this is something that I took with me everywhere I went. It didn't matter if I was hanging out with the family at the zoo. It didn't matter if I was gonna go get a coffee or anything like that. I basically took this phone, took thousands of pictures, and really wanted to compare to see if, number one, A, this was the best smartphone camera, and B, if this is just in general a great camera to have. So if you guys have been following me on my channel, you will know that I always carry two phones with me. Typically whatever Android phone I'm using, and also an iPhone 10, which in this case, that is a phone that I was using side by side with this, and mainly comparing it to my iPhone 10 just because I carry both of these phones. So let's go ahead and start with the camera. So again, I took thousands of pictures, and you know, we've come to the golden age now where I believe that it doesn't matter what Android phone in terms of like flagship phones, you're gonna get a great camera. I think nowadays, people who are really comparing, like, let's compare this phone with this phone or this phone with another phone, it's just gonna be so minimal that I think unless you're comparing them side by side, you're really not gonna tell a difference. And to be honest, I think all of the phones right now take really great pictures. Now, obviously there's new things like, for example, the aperture changing lens that everybody seems to be talking about. And yes, it does work. You get a little bit softer image when you're shooting at f1.5 wide open, but I don't think it's something that's gonna be like revolutionary or that every camera moving forward should have this. Yes, in most cases it does beat out just about any camera that you're gonna test out. But once again, it's gonna be a hit or miss, and even phones like the iPhone 10, Google Pixel 2 XL in low light already excel and they do a really great job. So it's just gonna really determine on the type of picture that you take or the scenario really. But again, it's a great feature. I don't think it's anything bad, but it's definitely not something that's revolutionary or that we should all just be saying next camera has to have that. Slow motion, same thing. High frame rate, I found it to be the same thing. It's one of those things that it's cool to have, don't get me wrong, but most of the footage, in my opinion, isn't really usable if you're gonna use it like on a very professional or even possibly even a YouTube video. It's a cool trick, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing that I would definitely want to get this phone just because of that. So one of the things I do like and appreciate is the new camera interface. It's a lot easier to find things. So for example, if you want to go into pro mode or selfie, you basically just swipe left or right depending on where you are in the menu. Now, in terms of like processing and stuff like that, I still feel that a lot of times when you use like the depth of field, the blur effects, they tend to look very artificial. Like I've used it on the food, I've used it on selfie, and it just has a lot of weird artifacting. Now, I think there's two companies right now that are doing a really great job in terms of getting that depth of field, that blurred out effect. One of them is Apple. I think the iPhone 10, iPhone 8 Plus with that double camera, they do a really great job to separating the background where it looks more like a DSLR. Same thing with the Google Pixel 2 XL. I think those two companies or those two phones in particular do a really great job, mainly on Google's side because of the whole machine learning. They're looking at all of the pictures, they're analyzing, and the camera in itself gets better and better. That's something very unique. So personally for me, Samsung, once again, takes really great pictures out of the box, but if you start using all of these blur tools and, you know, when shooting food and all these other things, it just starts to look really artificial. Personally, not a fan of that. Now let's go ahead and move on to other things like, for example, how is this phone using it as a daily driver? Obviously, you've probably already heard or seen that they moved the fingerprint reader on the back. I still think that it should be moved a little bit lower. In fact, I've been using it a lot to the point where I even got a notification that said that my camera sensor was dirty, probably due to the fingerprint when you try to unlock the phone. So, you know, these are things that I know Samsung fixed, and I applaud them for doing that, but it's one of those things like, do they get a praise for it as a new feature? I don't know. It's just one of those things that I just kind of feel like, great, you fixed it, but it should have not been there in the first place. Bixby, something they haven't fixed. And personally for me, I wish they would have got rid of it, or at least we've talked about this before. let us reprogram it to something a little bit more useful. So Samsung, if they are really listening to customer feedback, because it seems like everybody's applauding them like, oh look, Samsung listens because now the fingerprint reader is where it should have been in the first place. Well, Samsung, I don't think anybody really cares about Bixby button. We appreciate the button, but let's use it for other things. In terms of like the overall phone experience, Samsung's TouchWiz, not a fan of it, but I've learned to appreciate the little things, like for example, the hiding of the navigation buttons on the bottom. Like I think that's really cool because you get a full experience. They offer a lot of like custom ROM features that you normally would get. And if you just add Nova Launcher on top of that, the experience seems pretty much almost like stock Android. So I don't really have a problem with TouchWiz, and I do appreciate the things that Samsung has, even if it's not something that I like, but you can definitely disable. So the overall experience in terms of like an Android phone, I can definitely live with, and I appreciate and I like it. Battery life has been a hit and miss. Definitely not the best compared to other Samsung phones. But also, I think that with the fast charging that this phone has, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But overall, I mean, there's really not much to say. There's nothing that stands out from this phone aside from it's just an overall great phone. Now, if you own a Galaxy S8 Plus, a Note 8, or if you bought an Android phone, let's just say within the last year, and you're just itching to get something new, I don't know if I would say that this is worth the upgrade from whatever it is that you have, because there's a lot of great phones that have come out in the last year. Now, if you own a phone that's 2 years or older, I think that you should definitely consider this phone, mainly because it's pretty well-rounded. You have a really great display. The speakers sound really good now that we have stereo. Obviously, they fixed all the quirks that this phone had. For example, all of the fingerprint reader and just the little things, and made it a lot better. It's not perfect by any means, no phone is, but I like it. I think it's a great phone if you're definitely looking to buy a phone that's much older than anything that's been released in the last year. I don't think it excels in any particular department. Like I can't say this phone has the best camera, has the best battery life, has the best display, although some people may argue that. I personally don't think so. But in any case, that's irrelevant, really. I think it's a great phone in general, and using it for the 2-3 weeks that I have had the pleasure of using it, it's been a solid Android phone, and I would definitely recommend it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. Also follow me on Instagram at MondoBytes, Twitter, Snapchat. Oh no, not Snapchat, it's dead. Anywhere, pretty much all social media. Thanks again for watching, and you will catch me in the next one. Adios.